that a kebab in every other country is very different to a kebab in the UK.
Yeah. But most importantly, we are getting to the first game. It's going to be Roll versus Icky, Paladin versus Hunter, and no surprise at all at this point, Murloc opener.
Yeah, it's happened fairly consistently so far. As I mentioned, there has been a lot of variation in the Paladin lists that have been played in the early days of this new format. We've seen Elementals, we've seen hand buffs, we've seen hand buff Elementals, we've seen N'Zoth, we've seen Control, mid-range, Murlocs in and out of all those archetypes as well. But as the dust is beginning to settle, everyone is gravitating more or less with 1, 2, maybe 3 cards different, kind of gravitating towards this same list.
Yeah, crazy day when we can say a Murloc Paladin is one of the top decks in any given meta. Gonna look like a hold for a lot of these cards. True Silver Champion being held as well. Gonna be nice to clear up a lot of the early to mid-game Hunter threats very cleanly.
Yes, and Hydrologist into Rockpool Hunter can potentially be a lot of tempo early. Interestingly, if Fiery Bat isn't played on turn 1 for Hunter going first, it's actually hard for them to really generate a lot of power early on, which makes plays like Hydrologist into Rockpool Hunter have a good chance of sticking. Obviously, Crackling Razormaw can mess with that significantly, but you know that's a card that's probably going to punish you as Paladin no matter what you do, because you have no way as Paladin to remove a 1-mana card from the board going second. The cards just don't really exist that you play in a Paladin deck. The only way you're doing it is if you're going first and you get on the board with Lost in the Jungle.
Or you play Light's Justice for some reason. But
the card is there in the collection, but in an actual playable Paladin deck, they generally have no way to interact with early board state.
Yeah, and also as well, if you're going to try and play around Razormaw often, it's going to be very difficult to do so, because Hunter is currently excelling at sticking something to the board, and then suddenly even just Poisonous is going to be a huge problem. So I imagine we are going to see the Razormaw here. The runt just gets cleaned up very efficiently. And let's see what the options are. +3 attack, +1/1. I mean, both of those just deal with the Hydrologist.
He has to trade, right? He knows it was coined out, so he knows how big a punish Rockpool Hunter is. Like, even if he takes 3 attack and hits face, then the 2/2 getting buffed to a 3/3 potentially, then there's no punish. But it still seems like an ambitious line to go down.
I like being ambitious.
I do too.
So does Team Vietnam.
I like it. This is great identification. The fact that the 3 attack was available. If he took +1/+1, then the buff would be a punish to this play, but taking +3 attack means that even the buff making this a 3/3, it cannot pick up a value trade, and it's just going to have to trade off one of these minions anyway. Why trade when your opponent is going to do it for you?
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy, isn't it? That play actually just gains you so much extra damage, and also so much board control, because Icky does have a follow-up with Rat Pack next turn as well, and then to potentially, even though there's no foreplay, you can actually Rat Pack into Ravasaur Runt, depending on the minion.
It's happened again. Raven, when did you turn into such a child?
Look, no one can see the way you're looking at me. That's the problem. Turn 4. Play.
Yes.
There you go.
Rat Pack hitting the board, although Animal Companion pickup might be good enough to change that. If he can get a Misha here, he can just kind of push another 4 pretty much uncontested, and that's a ton of aggression being pushed through. So Vietnam definitely getting the better of the early game here, but you would expect them to. As we've mentioned before, this Paladin deck does have a nice sprinkling of these early game Murlocs that can grip the board, but not enough to do it consistently game in, game out. And that's how Hunter decks are built, to do it consistently game in, game out.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially against Hunter, right? You know, it's going to be a problem. And you just see the power of Razormaw, not Ravasaur. You know, Razormaw getting that adapt is absolutely huge. You know, having that available on 2, you have a minion to play on 1. Is exactly how the Hunter would like to open up every single game if possible. If they could have one thing, they would want 1 drop into Razormaw.
I do like the point you made about, you know, if you play around it super aggressively in the early game and deny them doing it, then they're just going to hit it later on a Rat Pack, like, you know, plus attack on a Rat Pack, Wind Fury, a high main, you know, all these kind of...
like, okay.
At some point, you're going to get Razormaw. It kind of reminds me a lot of Houndmaster in that regard, where... Yes, absolutely. When you're playing against Hunter, you should do everything you can to stop them Houndmastering on curve on turn 4.
Yes.
Because that's huge. But I've seen players just continue to super aggressively play around Houndmaster, turn 5, turn 6, so on and so forth. At some point, mate, you're getting Houndmastered. You just can't stop it happening for the whole game.
Very similar as well to the Razormaw is that, like, stuff in Hunter is cheap enough that once you get to turn 5 or 6, they can do 2 things in a turn, you know, so they'll probably just get it off anyway. So see what happens now. The Macaw returning to the original attack with the Aldo Peacekeeper. So it's going to go for the animal comp as opposed to the Runt. Runt doesn't do too much, whereas if this is Leok, I mean, Huff is good as well. Okay.
Said everyone ever.
Yeah. So you Huffer into the 3/3. What do you trade, a rat or a bird into the 2/1?
Raven asking the hard-hitting questions that matter.
Well, this is actually correct, because now you keep 1 of each on the board, as opposed to having 2 rats.
Excellent.
So this is actually the correct play, so good job to Icky. He knows how to hunter. And most importantly, as you said, there are 2 minions on the board. One of these needs to die, or Nesting Rock is going to look very good next turn.
And that is not going to happen. I mean, Nesting Rock is not a card that I'm also like not super concerned about playing around in situations like this, because it only gains Taunt. Like, it's a 4/7 either way. The stats are still there regardless, and there's a good chance that when it comes down on turn 5, it's the biggest minion in play anyways. It's kind of the one you want to deal with. There are annoying situations like this where it prevents you from dealing with the small minions. Like the Vilefin Inquisitor just picking up these nice trades would be great. But I mean, really, is he going to True Silver a 1/1 that turn to play around Nesting Rock? No way. No way.
Maybe. Consecrate kind of helps out, but I imagine this is going to be a True Silver turn, and Redemption doesn't really line anything up too good. Maybe we see the Getaway Kodo play with the Hydrologist. That's how confident I always am of getting Getaway Kodo for an off.
I was looking at the hand, I was like, he took Redemption. Why are we talking about... I was like, I see. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, a second Stonehill is always nice, but the problem is it just too slow? When there's a rock on the board, there's 2 1/1s. We can see that there's high main, but just the fact Hunter has 4 cards means something's going on next turn that's going to be strong, right?
Your confidence was misplaced, sir.
It would have been, if I did it would have been fine.
Oh, I see. Yeah. The ultimate out. Yeah, I agree this play is very slow, but what's the fast play in your hand right now? You don't really have one, right? Like, True Silver is a very fast card, but it doesn't do anything on this board. You can't chew through the Nesting Rock.
Actually, because Equality Conk is available next turn, this becomes way better, actually. Yeah. He can just Equality Conk next turn, if he needs to, of course. If not, can just equip True Silver. But,
well, I'm sticking with what was the alternative. Like, really, like, what was the other play he had this turn?
True Silver the Rock. Get him!
I guess.
I mean, you got to get through it at some point.
It's true.
But as I said, with Equality and Consecrate, it becomes much easier to do. Tracking picked up for Icky. I've been seeing a few players play Tracking. I'm just not convinced by that card, personally. But I guess with you leaning towards more 1-drops, then tracking those out potentially and getting a high drop is very important. Very similar to the way play like Tolve Ward and
exactly.
out the
that was the point I wanted to make, because like my experience with building Hunter is that you want to play a lot of 1-drops to be able to consistently get on the board first against the aggressive decks. Then you also want to play a lot of beefy minions so that you can outlast Quest Warrior, for example. So that building your deck, ticking both of those boxes, leaves you with kind of quite often this weird gap in your mid-game turns where you don't consistently have enough cards. You just have 1-drops or high mains kind of things in your hand. So you need something to bridge that gap. And the 2 cards that can do that effectively are Tolville Warden to increase the density of your deck and then allow you to hit things like high main more consistently. Or you just play Tracking, and then whenever you hit one of those awkward turns, you just fill it with a Tracking into a play that you can make.
We are going to see the Equality come down now. This is going to be a pretty clean. As with the minions on board, it means it's going to be able to clear everything, even the second half of High Maid. But this whole turn was used to clear the board, and now Icky can continue to jump onto it, can actually play out the Animal Comp Firebat and the Runt, and then have Tracking next turn if he really wants. The only problem is, can Tracking this turn to fill out the curve.
You do it, right?
Why not, right?
The Bat Companion Runt play only takes 6 anyway, so you might as well just take up the 1. And I think playing 3 Beasts this turn and having just seen your opponent commit their board clear, that's a pretty easy Houndmaster pick.
Yeah, I like it. Leok, not too bad. Doesn't look amazing like on its own, but with Houndmaster available, it's quite the formidable beast. 2 1/1s, I guess.
Two 1/1s is something. Stealth is actually reasonable. Is there any world where that stealth allows you to hit a Houndmaster that you otherwise wouldn't? Probably not, right? Yeah. Realistically, against Paladin turn 7.
I like the two 1/1s because Leok buffs the 1/1s regardless of them being beasts.
Yes.
Regardless of them not being beasts, should I say.
Sure.
So you can potentially get value if Leok continues to live.
Pyro picked up, though, 2 1-mana secrets in hand that can start to do some clearing work on this board state, but he's one short of being able to break through that Ravasaur run and kill the plants, and since this isn't Priest, he doesn't have a nice way to give his Pyro the extra health he'd need to do that anyway.
Yeah, I wonder if you actually just hit the Ravasaur run this turn, then Pyro Noble Sack to clear off everything but the Leok.
It's possible. I think like the line here from Roll is that he's True Silvering the Leok to reduce the most damage here, and then next turn he's just looking to True Silver the run and then do it that way. Because he can even, like, if he's setting up for Pyro Spike Ridge Steed is I think what he's doing. So next turn, even if there's a big minion played that he can't clear, he can hit the 2/2 with the True Silver, Pyro Spike Ridge Steed to clear the board, and then there'd be just that one minion being contested.
Yeah, there's even a chance he's just setting up for Drake.
Also
he just hits him to the run, plays Drake next turn, has a 4/8 on board. But he's got a lot of options though, and I think that's the important part here. The health differences are significant though. Icky on 28, not really been touched too much, but Roll is edging towards the point of being in the scary parts of health when you're against Hunter.
Yes.
And we've seen no heal so far. I imagine there's at least Ragnaros Lightlord in the deck. And hopefully one Forbidden Heal. I think one is needed. Oh, unless you might play the horse.
Ivory Knight.
Yeah. He might play Ivory Knight actually instead of a Forbidden Healing. But I don't know, like this is definitely looking rough now with Bow as well. This might just be too much to handle here.
It might be. There's a True Silver for a little bit of healing, and there are big taunts available, both the Drake and the Spike Ridge Steed, the two options that are a sort of quasi-board clear as well as a huge taunt this turn. Sunkeeper Terran pickup now is very relevant as well, and just looking at the Drake versus Pyro thing, I kind of like the Pyro, because you then have this huge health Pyro that you can use over time with the secrets. The difference now is that the line of play of True Silver over 2 turns plus AoE kind of got shut down by this Houndmaster anyway. But in the world where that plan worked out, I think I just liked the Pyro because of that opportunity to just continue board nuking the turn after and the turn after with the 1-mana secrets and the huge health pool on your Pyro.
Yeah. So looking at whether maybe even Hero Power into Tarim would be any good. Just so you can kill off the bat. You have 2 3/3s against your 3/7 and 3/3. But don't think it does too much versus the Pyro potential.
So if Drake adds power to the board, leaves the power on the board the same as the Pyro Steed play. He is going to go for Pyro Steed, so I think his thinking is similar to mine. There's also the addition that like Primordial Drake is just a much more universally strong card. You can just slam it in a lot of situations.
Well, at worst, it's a 4/8 taunt.
Exactly.
Like, at worst.
Right. Whereas Spike Ridge Steed actually requires a target for you to land it on. So I think, this is a lot more taunt in play for a similar amount of mana, and you can follow this up later now with Primordial Drake, which is just a universally stronger card.
And it's going to actually use the kill command here on the Wild Pyro. Guess this is reasonably safe. I wondered whether he just kill command Hero. Just get him in a couple of turns. He probably doesn't die. That's going to be wary of heal though. That's the problem.
Yeah, there's Rag Lightlord and there's Rag Lightlord plus another healing card at least usually in this deck. Whether that healing card is Forbidden Healing or Ivory Knight, as you talked about, is somewhat up for debate, but Rag Lightlord is almost ever present. There is Stonehill Defender cards that can get picked up as well that turn into Rag Lightlord. There are a lot of ways for the Paladin to heal. Icky, perhaps rightly scared of the healing being there, but my question is, does this play win the game too often? So you have a 2/2 on the board, right? So this play, by not kill command hero powering face, your play is playing around your opponent having healing. Yeah. Significant amounts of healing as well.
But you're also not putting yourself in range of any draws, right?
Right. But if your opponent has that healing and you have a 2/2 on the board and you've killed his taunt, aren't you losing to that same healing anyway?
Sure, that's true.
I don't really see the upside of the play that was made by Vietnam that turn.
Also, as well, disclaimer: Stonehill cannot get you Ragnaros.
Oh, what am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking of Servant of Calamos. I've made that exact mistake.
Just before.
I've made that exact mistake, but in reverse last week as well. Some
really?
part of my brain just keeps mixing those two up. I don't know what it is.
Just I can imagine.
Thank
chat.
I love that you're always here for me, Raven.
Unfortunately so, yes.
Yeah.
Always am, regardless of however mean you may be sometimes. But multiple one-drops, this is what we were saying earlier. Like, imagine if Tolve was played beforehand. Obviously, the game would look different, but you're much less likely to draw into these and draw into the bigger guys in the deck. This is pretty much how you lose with Hunter a lot of the time. I wonder if the risk was just worth it of the kill command. If the Pyro was just a taunt, cool, I'm down. But because it was the Spike Ridge T to summon the 2/6 as well, it's like, that is a lot of damage to try and plow through.
It really is.
No cards in hand.
And because it's, the part that bothers me is that he didn't develop board presence behind it. He just had a 2/2. It's not like the Hyena was growing into a game-winning threat. It was just a 2/2.
If the plants were actually beasts, right?
Right,
like,
sure.
Suddenly you're like, okay.
Right, but like kill command hero power face, you win the game over 2 turns if there's no healing. You put them down to 3, right, from the position that they were in.
And you still have draws, your second kill command, for example,
right,
as well.
Exactly.
Get you a sneaky out.
So in that position, you're losing to large amounts of healing, like Rag Lightlord or like Forbidden Healing. But if you're just developing a 2/2 on the board and allowing them to play into it, I just feel like you lose to that same healing anyway, so your play just hasn't really improved on the situation.
Yeah, especially when the healing is either a full Forbidden Healing, which is 20 health, or it's Ragnaros, which is 8 healing plus an 8/8.
Yep.
So...
And it's pretty much, I mean, it's happened in exact clarity. We've seen the absolute minimum amount of healing that could be classified as healing, just the second True Silver from Turkey's deck.
2 off.
Yeah, and he just hasn't got there. He went with the line where he played around healing by just not committing to face, and he just still hasn't got there because he didn't commit enough board pressure behind it.
It's one of the issues with now the lack of quick shot in Hunter.
Yes.
Means, I think, what's funny is there's one argument where you could be like, oh, because there's no quick shot, there's no point trying to be aggressive. But I actually think because there's no quick shot, you have to take the opportunities where you can get them and go hard.
Yeah,
because you don't have 3 draws instead of 1.
Yes.
Like, you can hit it in, early in the month or whatever, great.
Right.
You can, float around like, a couple of hundred and stuff. Finishing on top 100 is incredibly difficult, and huge respect to someone who's done that 8 times.
Yeah, if you play a few hours a day, every day, you're gonna get yourself into top 100 at some point. If you're a good player, if you're a high legend quality player, you just play a few hours a day. At some point, you're gonna sneak into top 100, possibly even higher. Towards the end of the month, it's a massive, just absolute snake pit, shark-infested waters. Everyone cutthroating each other, Q sniping, counter queuing, everything you can possibly imagine. People trying to get there on the last day. So if you get that done, then you are a very, very accomplished Hearthstone player. Just to do it once, let alone 8 times.
Great description. All I imagine is sharks wielding bags of snakes to throw at people. That's how brutal it is in top 100 Legend. But this is going to be brutal as well because Leos is playing Pirate Warrior against the Rogue from Stapit Blaze, and it looks like it's actually a Miracle Rogue from him, so he gains my respect, as opposed to if he was playing Quest Rogue, and then I don't know if we can be friends, mate.
+1 Raven point.
Yeah, you're now on 1. But yeah, the Pirate Warrior, not off to the fastest start in the world with an opening of Upgrade, but a lot of the times it just doesn't matter against Rogue. They just have damage permanence, effectively, to any damage they do to the Rogue is never going to get healed, unless, I guess, hallucination into shield block. But other than that,
yeah, hallucinations, swashbucklers. There's a decent chunk of defensive cards that you can get.
But realistically, the damage you do is normally the damage the Rogue is going to continue to take. And Pirate Warrior is a highly aggressive deck, although we've not seen anything too crazy out yet from Leoz. I believe the #1 win rate card is in his hand, and just been hit the board. South Sea Captain.
South Sea Captain indeed. But speaking of high win rate cards, Edwin Van Cleef, and I was just about to say, a hallucination draw this turn is absolutely nuts. That is hallucination, backstab, coin Edwin Van Cleef this turn. You can even get yourself an inner rage off this hallucination for a board clear and another +2/+2. That's the wrong rage.
That is the wrong Rage. We want the player called Rage.
He's always the right Rage.
He's always the right kind of Rage. None of these options are fantastic. Gorehowl might just be a finisher.
Sure.
A lot. I mean, maybe you can take Battle Rage because you're expecting Van Cleef to not die, right? He's going to take damage but not die, more than likely. So Battle Rage is probably the more consistent play. Gorehowl sometimes can be just good as 7 damage to face late on, but
the Brotherhood shall
it's going to be Battle Rage.
Yeah,
I'm not planning to get to turns.
Myself and Leoz do not share a language, but I think what he just said was coin Van Cleef. That's unfortunate, as he was talking to his team.
You do share a language because he speaks 3 or 4 different languages.
There's a very good chance.
I think it's Vietnamese, Korean, English. I think there was one more.
Interesting.
So yeah. Okay, so Bloodsail Raider and South Sea Deckhand is an option. It's kind of unfortunate because Dread Corsair is a nice speed bump, but that's his whole turn, and I don't think that's fast enough. Can we set up for... Oh, he's going for the clearance. Okay, he's just going to clear it off. This is reasonable. You just take 8 damage, call it a day, because even if you put Raider down, Corsair, sorry, then that could just get clanked up, and then you've got to do it again, you know, and again. So this clear is actually really nice for Leoz. Still took 8 to the face, but Pirate Warrior not too often worried about its own health total.
Yeah, I've seen this happen and had this happen to me on a scary number of occasions now, where I make an 8-8, even a 10-10 Van Cleef early as Rogue. The Pirate Warriors, or the good Pirate Warriors, will generally just trade into it and then start again, because if you try and race it, there's that 10 damage on board that's pushing you, but you also make more cards in your opponent's deck good against you, right? Because if they have a 10-10 stuck on the board and you try to race it, if their hand is backstabs and eviscerates and fan of knives,
yeah, they could just
use those to clear your minions and they're pushing damage. Whereas if they have nothing on board and they spend their whole turn clearing your minions, great, you just play more minions next turn. You equip Arcanite Reaper, you push damage. So I think this is a situation I've actually seen Pirate Warrior win from a lot more than you might expect. Obviously, it's a fantastic play for the Rogue, and it increases their win rate exponentially to have that big Van Cleef opening. But I don't think it's checkmate as long as you generally do trade into it as the Pirate Warrior.
Yeah, and we're going to see a bit of a big play here from Turkey, and it's going to be the coin Gadgetzan into Backstab trade. Backstab just going to try and draw into something great. Second Gadgetzan, not great at all. But the onus is now on Leoz from Vietnam to deal with this Gadgetzan, because even as a deck as aggressive as this Warrior, I believe you do not want to give your opponent a way out when they only have 2 cards in hand.
Right. The Abyss pickup would have been pretty nice. Stubbit Blizz would have had Battle Rage live to at least draw the 1 card off the injured Valera itself, so it would have drawn 2 with the Auctioneer on the board. Eviscerate would have removed perhaps the captain or the Bloodsail Raider, whatever got committed to board, so he would have been off to the races if he hadn't have traded. And yes, Leoz is trading much, much more than he would maybe like to at this point, but Pirate Warrior can do this. If he's able to stick a board at some point, that translates immediately into a lot of that damage you've already lost, and you're buying yourself so much time by making the trades.
Yeah, I think it's important that he's trading and he has 3 minions still in hand. If he had none, then yeah, we're in a bit of deep water going on here. But he doesn't. He has a lot of minions in hand, all pirates, and now he can actually play. He can go Raider, Cultist, Corsair, which is a very nice turn.
It is.
He doesn't kill the Gadgetzan though.
No. There is no way for him to do that with Patches having already been summoned this turn. Patches would have been his 1 out and way to do it. He does miss 1 attack on the Bloodsail Raider, but much more importantly is able to generate all 3 minions on the same turn. So 1 attack down on the Raider to develop a whole new 3-3 on the board seems worth it to me. But now it's party time for Miracle Rogue, for Turkey, and for Stubbit Blizz.
Yeah, going to be Battle Rage for 3 cards. This turn, which is absolutely incredible. Foresight to get the Battle Rage off there. There is Prep, Mimic Pod, Shiv. Sherazin probably not going to be played this turn due to be able to just use more spells, but Eviscerate as well. A second Prep. This is getting mildly ridiculous.
Curious about the sequencing there. I was wondering whether it was worth using more natural mana on the cheaper spells that you're almost certainly going to use this turn, like eviscerating the 3/4, for example.
Yeah, it's going to happen, right?
Right. Because I don't think Mimic Pod necessarily always gets cast that turn, so you might end up pushing through your deck to Fan of Knives, for example, and prepping that for 3 mana instead. These are very small things that come in Miracle Turn sequencing that are not always relevant, and I'm not even convinced that I'm right in that situation, but they're worth thinking about.
Yeah, he can clear this up very easy. Now Arcane Giant now being... it's going to be free. Absolutely huge. This huge Miracle Turn. Back an Arcane Giant. And I believe GG Leoz is just going to GG out of this game because that is not something you can race as Pirate Warrior.
No. It's also not something that you can successfully trade into as Pirate Warrior.
First mate, got him.
Excellent. I will hit 1 for 3 this turn and then for 1 the next turn. And we're playing that and actually a lot of success as well. I was pushing top 100 Legend playing it at one point, so it actually seems pretty strong to me.
Also as well, kind of control. It's actually N'Zoth Shaman is very strong in Wild at the moment.
Woo!
The Wild alarm.
Yeah.
So
those of you that aren't aware, Raven spent 1 month playing Wild and now thinks he knows everything about that format.
I do.
Yes.
But now moving on to...
One person on this casting desk has top 10 Wild Legend finishes, and spoilers, it's not Raven.
Until the end of this month. So moving on though, back into this format and this game, Turkey with the Pirate Warrior. So ignore all the control speak.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. And Chani does have the Elemental Shaman by the looks of it with Blaze Collar Hot Spring Guardian available, and even Kazai Blood Mage Thanos is always interesting pick.
Ooh, bit of Tide Hydra in the Pirate Warrior as well. And I'll go back to Ball Control. If you guys at home don't know who Ball Control is, he's probably the most dominant player in the UK over the last 12 to 18 months. He's a player that we all petitioned to be part of our team, but he didn't quite get the popular vote in terms of some of the more well-known players. But he played this deck a ton in the early days of the expansion. He recommended heavily that his teammate Jambray brought it to the tournament to represent the UK against USA. Jambray then got absolutely stomped by Firebat's Pirate Warrior, and Ball Control tweeted something to the effect of, oh, I was like 80% against Pirate Warrior with this deck. I guess it just wasn't our day. So he feels this deck is very, very effective against both types of warrior, although many people, Show and perhaps even Firebat, if he always draws like that, probably disagree with that assessment.
And it's Firebat, so he probably does. But yeah, better Tide Hydras in the Pirate Warrior. And what are the reasons for this card versus, whatever it's even cut for? Is there no Leroy, for example?
It costs 5 mana and it has 2 number 8s on it. Those are the reasons for this card.
Do you think it's a good pick?
There are
a lot of lists that don't play it.
I mean, straight up cards on the table, I have not played Pirate Warrior since the expansion came out. So
one of the good guys?
Yeah, there are more interesting things for me to test and have opinions on these days than the optimal build of Pirate Warrior. So I haven't tested it out too much. I do like it in Aggro Druid, and I do like it in Midrange Hunter. I like it in both of those decks. I just haven't got around to playing it yet in Pirate Warrior.
Okay, so we've got the 2 Hot Spring Guardians available and a Maelstrom Pole. Igneous Elemental, I still don't know what I think about this card in general. Feels very slow, even for Elemental Shaman.
Yeah.
Feels very, very... I mean, it's good in Quest Rogue, guys. But we are talking about Shaman for now, so he's going to go for the Elemental this turn. Interesting. Hot Spring does get cleaned up very easily, but you do still gain pretty much the heal from it as well, so... Definitely a tough one.
It's a brutal clear for the second Blood Cell Cultist, though. Obviously not expecting the Blood Cell Cultist number 2 is Vietnam at this point, having just seen the first one already, but this is already just a ridiculous board state. And, most commonly, Elemental Shamans are fairly weak on terms of Lightning Storms. They just play Maelstrom Portal, and then they have Kalamos as their Lightning Storm. They don't often play more than 1 natural copy of Lightning Storm in the deck.
Yeah, we did see a couple of players bringing Volcano, though.
That's true.
Being one
that
of
is
them.
true,
And
yeah.
Volcano is a card I actually love. The more I play that card, the more I like it. So there is a chance. But as we said as well, these are countries from around the world playing, and although, the internet is a wonderful thing, and you can pretty much watch anyone play at this point and check out tons of decks, some regions do prefer their own styles and prefer their own, versions of the deck list. So there's a chance that we might not see it from the Vietnamese team.
If you like Volcano that much, you should play that Burst Doom.
Okay, you have to give me that list.
It's really strong. By the way, someone tweet at me and let me know that guy's name that I've forgotten, and I will retweet and give credit where due. I hate doing that. The guy's built an awesome deck, and I've just forgotten his name.
I'm just already picturing the responses. Tweet at me and let me know the guy's name I forgot.
Yes.
Raven. I can just see it. I'll preemptively make the joke before anyone else does.
But yeah, you haven't lived until you've played Acolyte of Pain into Volcano, cleared your opponent's board, and drawn 3 cards. It's beautiful.
Oh,
but yes, Volcano is going to be very much needed here for Vietnam because this is one of the most impressive Pirate Warrior starts that you can get. Not only are they pushing damage, they have a massive amount of board control from the 3/3 weapon. They also just have a very sticky, high health board state, which is a nightmare for this deck to deal with, especially since most commonly it's been cutting Lightning Storms from the deck.
Yeah, and you know, just even there's multiple options on turn 4 here. There's even Bloodsail Raider armor up if really needed, but Frothing Berserker, Deckhand, Smoke Run Elite, you know, there's all the options here, which is when Pirate Warrior's got multiple options for one turn, you're normally very afraid of that. So yeah, this is all going well, and looks like Berserker has a bit of Tide Hydra ready for 5 as well, so going to continue with more options going forward. I do think I just like the Corcoran to the Hot Spring.
You Corcoran face, right? You trade the weapon and a 1/1.
Oh,
and
sure.
Face, yeah.
You know what? I actually just forgot the weapon was 3. I thought it was 2.
The weapon got real big, real fast.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you're completely right. This is just way better. You get rid of your one health minions, or at least one of them, and make you much less susceptible to the lack of AoE we were talking about. And this is just grim for Team Vietnam here. We could be on the verge of a 3-0 sweep for Turkey here today.
Yep. Hot Spring and Flame Tongue is about as good as it gets this turn, though. Allows this Flame Elemental to do something relevant, which Turkey didn't have to let it do. They could have chosen to trade into it there to play around this exact scenario, but I think Berserky and Turkey in general are just... sorry, I had to make that rhyme at some point. It just felt too nice to say it. I apologize. But yeah, I think he just feels so comfortable that he's just happy pushing damage. Even the worst case scenario, which this basically was, outside of Lightning Storm, this is about the worst thing that could have happened to him this turn, and it's still just fine.
Yep. Yeah, it's looking pretty grim. Is there even a way? It looks like this game's going to be over really soon. So this might be a little bit too much for Vietnam to handle here.
Not looking too rosy. Maelstrom Portal is doing nothing, even with the spell damage. It's just going to send that Frothing Berserker spiraling out of control. Fire Ellie not enough to get there either. 1 turn off Blaze Caller, despite playing the Elemental next turn. Fire Ellie takes the 5 power off the board, but adds 1 to the Frothing, so there would still be 6, 9, 12, 15 damage in play, comfortably enough to push through lethal. Vietnam are looking in trouble. Maybe 2 taunts from the Totem and the Maelstrom Portal. Is that ever good enough? No, because the Frothing just grows from the taunts being traded into anyway.
The Frothing just gets them.
I'm not seeing it.
And the Frothing grows significantly from the Maelstrom Portal as well. That's not going to be it. And Vietnam are out. You can see with the disappointment there on Chandy's face. You can't really argue with that.